Since Evergrande's debt crisis became news last year, we've been concerned with China's real estate bubble that will bring down Chinese banks, triggering a worldwide financial crisis. We've heard about growing delinquent mortgages and foreclosures taking place in China, but can't quantify them. The recent movement among Chinese homebuyers to boycott mortgage payments put another hard squeeze on the ugly housing bubble. Will it bust? Let's first quantify bad housing loans that are haunting China's banks. Hello, welcome to my show. I'm Lei. Back in early 2021, most Chinese weren't aware of Evergrande's financial trouble. One Evergrande project started sales in January 2021, but stopped construction only 4 months later. More than 100 people had bought properties through the developer. 5 months later, construction resumed due to government intervention, but stopped again this June. The project is 3 months away from scheduled delivery, but is only a third completed due to the lack of funds. So the 900 home buyers decided to publicly boycott making mortgage payments. On June 30th, over 900 families who bought properties at Evergrande Longting Development in Jiangxi published an open letter to the local housing authorities, banking regulatory authorities, and the banks, saying they would suspend mortgage payments until the developer resumes construction. It spread like wildfire, and within 2 weeks, home buyers of nearly 300 housing projects across 25 provinces publicly announced refusal to pay mortgages on properties that the financially strapped developers can finish. This mortgage boycott storm affects not just the regions known for troubled real estate markets like Henan. It also affects China's wealthiest regions like Shenzhen, Shanghai, and Guangdong. Big-name developers such as Evergrande, Greenland, Sunac, and Kaiser are involved. Award-winning projects like the Wuhan Times New City, which was the national champion that sold 3,200 units in 2019, are no exceptions either. Sensing an impending doom, 7 major Chinese banks reacted immediately. The banks issued statements saying the risk was manageable and that the impact was insignificant. Western firms seemed to agree. According to Jefferies, a full default would result in 388 billion yuan of non-performing loans, or 1% of China's total mortgage balance. A team of analysts at Citigroup estimated the impact at 1.4% of total mortgage balance. But I'm not convinced. Judging by the bank's unusual timely response, they are very concerned. Using publicly available data and mostly official data coming out of China, I did my estimates, and I think the impact is much higher. According to data by Chinese real estate service platform CRIC, by the end of 2021, and based on data in 24 key markets, the total square footage of undelivered housing projects accounted for 10% of the total residential area sold. If we apply the 10% to the total real estate transactions of 1.8 billion square meters last year, we have 180 million square meters of housing sold in China last year that are in limbo now. But this doesn't include the unfinished properties left from previous years. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the cumulative residential area under construction from prior years and new constructions totaled 8.4 billion square meters in 2021. If we apply the 10% from CRIC, roughly 840 million square meters of construction are now in limbo. How many families are impacted? China's National Bureau of Statistics shows that the average living area per household is 111 square meters. So the 840 million square meter unfinished residential properties translates into 7.6 million families. What does this mean in terms of mortgage value? The average mortgage size in China is 600,000 yuan. That times 7.6 million families is 4.5 trillion renminbi. That's the mortgage value of the unfinished projects. Chinese banks have the risks of 4.5 trillion yuan non-performing loans due to broken construction promises. That's 12% of China's total mortgage balance, not 1%. We can verify this number by using a different approach. Using the national average price of 10,000 renminbi per square meter, the value of the 840 million unfinished construction is 8.4 trillion yuan. What does it mean in terms of mortgage value? Before the pandemic, Chinese were required a 60% down payment for home purchases. During the pandemic, it lowered to 40% and 30%, and now even 20%. So let's assume the average remaining mortgage balance is 50% of the property value. Then the non-performing mortgage due to incomplete or unfinished construction is roughly 4.2 trillion renminbi. It's consistent with our previous estimate of 4.5 trillion. What these numbers tell us is that when people across China all stop paying mortgages on properties they bought but didn't get, Chinese banks would be hit with over 4 trillion yuan of bad loans. Jefferies and Citigroup's estimates are very low. At 1%, they basically claim that the majority of Chinese who bought a home but didn't get one will continue to pay mortgages. Only 8 to 11 people out of 100 will stop paying mortgage. I think they've underestimated the Chinese people's will to defend their rights. But that's not all. There's another piece. The home buyers in the mortgage boycott storm didn't stop payment because of financial insolvency. They stopped payment to demand that government and developers resume construction. But the number of people who have stopped mortgage payments due to financial difficulties is also large. Data on defaulted mortgages and foreclosures are sensitive information in China. Let's get an idea by looking at some reference data. In June, Yahoo's Chinese edition and a number of Chinese media outlets reported that there are 40 million defaulted mortgages and 10 million foreclosures in China. The numbers came from a web user quoting a CCP internal risk management meeting as the source. And another Chinese web user validated the numbers mathematically like this. In the city of Hangzhou alone, there were over 50,000 foreclosures listed on Alibaba's real estate platform during the early months of 2022. This didn't include the foreclosures listed on other platforms. Total foreclosures in Hangzhou could be as high as 70,000. Hangzhou is the capital city of Zhejiang, a wealthy province on the coast. There are 230 big cities in China. 70,000 foreclosures times 230 cities. That's 16 million potential foreclosures across China. So the 10 million foreclosure number is realistic. By the way, Alibaba's real estate platform no longer lists the foreclosure information, probably because the authorities deemed it too sensitive. 10 million foreclosures of an average mortgage of 600,000 renminbi. That's 6 trillion renminbi. The 6 trillion foreclosures plus the 4 trillion mortgage suspension due to failed construction are the exposure of bad loans to Chinese banks. That's about 28% of China's total mortgage balance, 9% of GDP, and 4% of China's M2 money supply. And the numbers may be worse next year when 4 million defaulted mortgages become foreclosures. The mortgage boycott storm or movement makes the CCP extremely nervous because 1. The government's hands are tied. Unlike the Henan Village Bank customers who went to the government to appeal with banners and shouting slogans, the homeowners don't need any confrontation to make a statement. All they have to do is stop mortgage payments. If this is done on a large scale, that's enough to make the banks and the government restless. 2. The banks can do anything. In a normal case of mortgage default, the bank repossesses the property. In this case, there is no property, and the bank cannot take anything from the home buyer. The banks may threaten the home buyers with bad credit scores. Some home buyers said that in a country where banks, developers, and government have lost credibility, they don't care about their credit score anymore. China's debt problem is a big topic. I only focused on the real estate market today. I will make another video to follow up on the topic of China's overall debt problem. Stay tuned. I made a video about how Beijing is coping with declined real estate sales and why Henan is hit with so much financial problems. It's called Garlic for Houses. Check it out. See you next time. Thank you.